Mar, for giving me this opportunity to speak at your very esteemed institution today. And a pleasant good morning to all our listeners. I feel very honored to speak on this topic, which I myself have pondered upon for many, many years. Is Gandhiji relevant today? And the question also begs another question. Was he also relevant back then as well? So I would look at those two areas today. And I'll begin with a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, which is, "The future depends on what we do in the present." So whatever it is that we do now definitely has an impact on our tomorrow. In other words, we might be products of our past, but we are indeed the producers of our future, to rephrase what Gandhiji himself said. So what Gandhi did and what his life was should have relevance today in some way or the next. And yes, I am from Trinidad and Tobago. In 1845, a number of East Indians left Uttar Pradesh and Bihar mainly, and they journeyed towards various islands such as Fiji, Mauritius, and my own country, Trinidad and Tobago. There we also have East Indians in Guyana, in Suriname. And the issues that affected India historically affected us. Maybe not directly, but indirectly, because this is still Bharat Mata. So whatever happened in India was of relevance to us today. 2 nights ago, I was speaking to a Bollywood film producer, and he was, so I was in Mumbai. So if I'm looking a bit sleepy, it's because it was a long weekend in Mumbai. And he asked me, he said, "Is your genealogy important to you? What area of India you came from?" And I responded to him, I said, "My genealogy has some importance, yes, but the ideology of India is more important than the genealogy of India. My roots did not begin somewhere in Basti, because if I believe that to be so, then I am limiting my own history. And if I believe that my roots began when the Fatal Razak left India and landed in the shores of Trinidad and Tobago, then I am shortening my history even further. But somewhere along the banks of Saraswati, somewhere up in the hills of the Himalayas, when the Rishis and the Munis started to pen the Vedas, when we had the revelations of the Upanishads, when the Puranas were being written, when the war of the Mahabharata was taking place, when Bhagavad Gita was being revealed, all that is part of my history. So whatever happens in India is part of my own history. So what I am speaking about today is of great relevance to me personally, and of course to the world. Mahatma Gandhi is probably the most known Indian on the planet. Even the Bollywood stars, whether it be the Shah Rukh Khan or the Salman Khan, or the great voice of Lata Mangeshkar, or the great talent of Sachin Tendulkar, is incomparable to the popularity and influence of Mahatma Gandhi. But what is that influence? It had a huge impact on India, undoubtedly so. It probably had an even greater impact on the crumble of the British Empire. And it was certainly an influencing factor on the world stage. His thoughts, his actions, and even his inactions have created discussions. Decades later, we are still having debates. Books are still being written on his thoughts. Documentaries are provided, and even movies have been done of which Ben Kingsley is one of my favorite actors, by the way. I looked at that movie when I was 19 years old. So I don't want to date myself, so I will skip the year. And it made me think, what exactly is Mahatma Gandhi? He generated great admiration, but equally generated great criticism. He was hailed by some as one of the greatest patriots of India, but he was also seen by others as one of the greatest betrayer of India. He was deemed to be a hero to many across the world, but others felt that he was nothing more than an opportunist. Who then is Mahatma Gandhi? And that will be the basis of our discussion this morning. Before I start to look at the concept of Gandhian philosophy, I would like to share something that Mahatma Gandhi himself said. In his words, he said that there is no such thing as Gandhiism, and I do not want to leave any sect after me. I do not claim to have originated any new principle or doctrine. I have simply tried in my own way to apply the eternal truths to our daily life and problems. The words of Mahatma Gandhi, quote unquote. If we speak about Gandhi philosophy, is it the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, or is it the philosophy promoted by Mahatma Gandhi? Because there's a significant difference between the two. Is it Gandhi's philosophy, or is it the philosophy that Gandhi preached? Is he the possessor of the philosophy, or is he just the messenger of the philosophy? So is there really something such as Gandhian philosophy or the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi? You are young people that I'm speaking with today. At the age of critical thinking, at the age where you must develop your metacognitive skills. A lot of the things that I'm about to say is to challenge your thinking, challenge your mind, but not give you any answers. Because we have a question and answer period, but I want that question that you ask me to turn into a quest rather than a question that is seeking an answer. Challenge your mind to keep searching. So what is the premise then of this philosophy that Gandhi promoted? Gandhi promoted a philosophy that every human being is inherently virtuous. He promoted an idea that he called a practical ideal that all human beings possess in them that divine spark, that spark of virtue. Now think about this for a moment. If this is Gandhi's philosophy that he's sharing, whether it belonged to Mahatma Gandhi or not, it is a fundamental difference between a human being that is inherently, by its own nature, divine or virtuous, fundamentally different from the Western philosophies that teaches that the human being is corrupt above all things and desperately wicked. So this thought itself that founded the foundation of Gandhi's thinking and his actions and inactions was very new to Western philosophy if you study Western philosophy. I'll just repeat that one more time. Western philosophy teaches, it propagates that the human nature in its core is desperately wicked and corrupt, fundamentally different from we are inherently and innately a divine spark. Secondly, Gandhi believed that every human being possesses the capability, the potentiality to experience the evolution of virtues and morality in their own life. From the most corrupt criminal, from the most deranged mindset, we possess that potential for us to evolve. And that drove a lot of his thinking in terms of how he dealt with humanity, including those that were opposed to his ideals, to his ideas, and to his own pursuits in life. And thirdly, Gandhi believed that everything in this world centered on the concept of God. He believed that God was the core of all that we do, in all that we think, in all that we say. But what one person called God and what another person called God, the idea of that God might be very different. So we would look at that as we proceed. As a young man, like many of you, I looked at his movies, his documentaries, his thoughts, and then I became the ambassador to South Africa. And if you, which most of you would be familiar with the life of Mahatma Gandhi, it actually began in South Africa. So I'm there now in South Africa, and being very excited when I learned that there is a place called Durban where you have almost 1.1 million Indians. So I thought it would be a great idea if I see Durban and experience Durban and what Durban would look like. And I was invited to Durban University of Technology and as a speaker. So I went there, and lo and behold, there was the Gandhi Trust at the university. So I became very excited that there's a Gandhi Trust in South Africa. Somebody remembered that Gandhi lived in South Africa for 21 years. I wonder who this could be. So I went into the trust, and lo and behold, I met this person whose name was Ella Gandhi. So I asked this very sweet, gentle 76-year-old woman, so how are you connected to Gandhi? And then she said, with the sweetest of tones, she looked at me with this smile that I would never forget, and she said, I am his granddaughter. And I looked at her with the greatest of shock and said, oh my goodness, you are his granddaughter? And I hugged her. I wasn't sure if I would be charged for assault or if security would run in there and drag me out. But I was thinking to myself, how lucky could I be? This is worth me leaving Trinidad and Tobago to go to South Africa so I could get a hug from the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi. So I hugged her tightly and I looked at her and I said, you look so much like him. I'm not sure if I was imposing his face on hers, but I wanted to see that. She then asked me, she said, are you busy today? I had meetings all day. I said, no, I'm not busy today. So she said, would you go with me to Pietermaritzburg? I said, isn't that where he was thrown out of the train? So she said, yes, that's where he was thrown out. I said, I would love to go. I said, yes, you will ride with me in the official car of the ambassador. So I am so proud. I'm sitting next to Ella Gandhi, granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi, going to Pietermaritzburg. And we went there and I saw exactly the area where he was thrown out. And she looked at me. She said, you know why this is a special place? And I said jokingly, is it the place where he landed safely? And she said, in this confused look, as if I was mentally retarded, she said, no, this is where he was discriminated against. And Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi became the Mahatma. And I looked at her and I said, I know, but I just wanted to hear it from your mouth. And afterwards, she took me to where he lived for 21 years in Durban. I walked into that house and there was a sense of awe. I was awestruck. I looked at the Bhagavad Gita that he kept, the actual Bhagavad Gita that he used when he lived in South Africa. Why am I sharing this? It's because these books, Gita, Buddhism, the Bible, Islam, Jainism, all had major influences into what Gandhi developed as his ideology. And the reason I'm sharing this is that our discussion doesn't become some abstract that I read in some encyclopedia somewhere and now regurgitating it to you. I spend the entire day with Ella Gandhi. And they say if something is nice, you do it twice. So I went back to Pretoria, got my family, my wife and 2 children, brought them back to Durban, and invited Ella Gandhi to have lunch with us. She said, no, you must come to my home and I will cook for you. So I pretended to be a proper diplomat and I said, no. You know, we would take you out for lunch, but inside of me was saying, yes, I would like the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi to cook for me. So we went and she made the best halwa that I've ever tasted. Why was this another significant point for me? Because when I went in there, I asked her, I said, how well did you know Mahatma Gandhi? And she said, I grew with him as a child. I spent time with him. I sat on his lap. I had discussions with him, which I remember to this day. And she shared those discussions with me. The man that became the Mahatma was that concept, that ideology was born in South Africa. There's something that I would like to read for you that he said when he described being thrown out of the train. He said, it was winter, and the winter in the higher regions of South Africa is severely cold. Maritzburg being at a higher altitude, the cold was extremely bitter. My overcoat was in my luggage, but I did not dare ask for it, lest I should be insulted again. So I sat and shivered. I began to think of my duty. The hardship to which I was subjected was superficial, only a symptom of the deep disease of color prejudice. I will repeat something he said, that so I sat and shivered. My challenge to you, young people today, how long did he sit and shiver for? That is not the same person that we saw walking on the Salt March. He did not sit and shiver again. His philosophy transformed into one of sitting and shivering, from one of just simply pondering into one of action. Gandhi was not just a man of words and these esoteric psychologies that we throw out to the world, but he became a philosophy of action, a philosophy of what we actually do. For those of you who saw Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, the great Yoda was teaching Luke Skywalker the ways of the Force. And Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try. That was Mahatma Gandhi. He was the first Yoda before Star Wars was made. It was to do. It had no concept of not doing unless it was in action with the result of something being done. Today, we will focus on what his philosophies were in terms of what he followed. And we define philosophy as a concept of reality and the rationality of that reality. That is basically what philosophy is. We all have different philosophies. And the philosophies of Gandhi, I'll divide it into 4, some divide it into more, but I'll stick with this. And I'll use English if you don't mind, because this is my strong language. So he promoted the philosophy of truth, the philosophy of nonviolence, the philosophy of passive resistance, and the philosophy of upliftment for all. I could literally cut short my conversation with you today because every single thought that I just shared in terms of those philosophies, we find relevance in today's society. What is the philosophy of truth? From the perspective of Gandhi, he said that nothing was created by him. Whether we look at Buddhism, or at Islam, or at Christianity, or the very philosophies of Vedanta, which in itself means the eternal treatise, the eternal truth. Truth existed, and it is an absolute truth. Meaning that despite the fact that we all have a subjective reality unique to each one of us, the deeper and deeper we go, the core of that remains more or less the same, which we all seek after. Whether you be a Hindu, you say Om Shanti Shanti, Hari Om. If you're a Muslim, you greet each other by wishing the same thing, which is peace. Assalamu alaikum, and you answer in like manner, wa alaikum salam. The pursuit of truth is the pursuit of the highest ideals of human value. That is truth. Truth is, according to Gandhi, something that is permanent in its nature, not impermanent. It is unchanging, not changeable. Love has no change. Passion and compassion has no change. Kindness has no change. Perseverance has no change. There is no greater truth than this. That is the absolute truth, the unchanging reality, the unchanging substratum of our moral guidance. That is what Gandhi held to be true. And that was the first philosophy that he promoted. And he promoted it with great passion. The philosophy of truth. Not unique to Gandhi, because it was here millenniums, thousands of years before. Secondly, his philosophy of nonviolence. Someone asked me over this weekend, actually, how do I see the world? How do I feel about the world? And I looked at them and I said, isn't the world really the creation of your own mind? Isn't it true that if you have hatred in your mind, bitterness in your mind, depression in your mind, sadness in your mind, despair in your mind, distress in your mind, you wake up, and what is your perspective of the world? But if your mind is based upon quietude, mental calm, love, then you perceive the world to be the same. If you perceive the world to be the same, then the world is basically a projection of your own mind, a projection of you. The world is you. In other words, to rephrase an old quote, I am not a drop in the ocean. I am the entire ocean in a drop. The aspect of nonviolence, according to Gandhi, was that if you hurt any aspect of this world, you are in effect hurting yourself. How then can we be violent to anyone or anything when that is in effect me? How can I look at someone and hate because of color, because of class, because of caste, because of creed, because of religion? How could I possibly do so if it is an extension of myself? How can I ensure that women are disempowered if that is an extension of me? How can I look at someone who's physically challenged and treat them differently? And they're just an extension of me. Violence is not simply physical brutality, because we could be very violent mentally. You know, there's an old saying while I was growing, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words could never hurt me. Absolutely untrue. Absolutely untrue. Psychology will show that the words, the silent treatment, the non-words, which is the non-verbal communication, can all hurt and maybe even worse than the physical assault on someone. Non-violence is not just a physical action, but it is a mental structure, a mental composition in which we must embrace as we approach this world, as we interact with this world, and as we develop this world, but most importantly, as we evolve as a human being. That is known as the concept of non-dualism versus dualism. Dualism means that I see myself separated from this world, so therefore I seek my interest. It's all about self. It's all about what is good for me. That was absent from the mind of Gandhi. It was a concept of non-dualism. I am not separate from you. I am you. You are me. The concept of non-violence, according to Gandhi, is about the state of peace. I was speaking to a Bollywood actor last night while they were in shoot. So I was invited for the first time, by the way, to see how they shoot these scenes, right? So they had the hero and his lead actress dancing and singing and mimicking the songs, and I was there and saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I'm watching this in real for the first time. And then afterwards, I spent some time with the actor, and I'm saying, oh, you must so love your job. And he said, but I never get rest. So I said, that's fine, because you can be in action, but remain in mental rest. And then he looked at me. This is a very popular actor. He looked at me and he said, mental rest? Oh, how could you have mental rest if you don't have physical rest? So I told him, I said, do you know that you can be on the top of Mount Everest, looking at the wonders of creation, but yet your mind is so busy. Your mind is unrestful. And then you could be in the middle of Delhi with tuk-tuks all around you, negotiating through traffic, taxis, cows crossing the road, and be in total bliss, total peace, total calm. Peace is not a place. The concept of non-violence, according to Mahatma Gandhi, had absolutely nothing to do with where. It had everything to do with the state of mind. The mind must be at peace. The mind must be at bliss. The mind must be at rest. Love is not a feeling, according to the concept of non-violence. Love is a state of being. And if my state of being is love, then it is not affected by the externalities of this world. It is not affected by the conditions that surround me, but it is a permanent state that despite what is happening, I remain at peace and I remain in that state of love. I'll quote Swami Chinmayananda. In describing this mental state of calm, he said one could either be like a log on the ocean, being tossed to and fro as the waves move, under the control of all the external influences around you. Or you can choose to be the lighthouse that stands. Despite the turbulence in the water, nothing changes the lighthouse. It remains strong and standing, and it illuminates the entire ocean. While the waves break at the foot of the lighthouse remains standing strong. It remains in equipoise, it remains in balance. But its light guides all towards it. The state of nonviolence, as I said, to repeat, it is not a physiological condition upon which we impose upon someone or it is imposed upon us. The state of nonviolence is a mental state of equipoise, quietude, the calmness of the mind, a state of love, a state of peace. Gandhi believed that every human being, by their very nature, is divine. It's a concept that I myself hold to. Because if you look at a puppy that is born, a kitten that is born, a baby that is newborn, why do we gravitate naturally towards it? Because of its innocence, because of its love. When my first son was born, I realized the most beautiful sound that I've ever heard in my life was not Mozart, which I love, by the way, not Beethoven, not Bach, not John Williams. And these days for you young people, it is not this guy who sang the song Perfect. Ed Sheeran. I just had to ask my wife. The most beautiful sound was to hear a baby laugh. Why? Because the human nature is divine. We just need to unfold what we are not in order to realize what we are. We are not the body. That will come and go. We are not the mind. That changes every two minutes. We are not the intellect because the intellect itself is flawed. Then what am I? I am that permanent state. I am that unchangeable state of bliss, peace, and love. That is my state. You know, Gandhi himself never believed to be a philosopher. Never thought himself to be one. He believed to be a practical idealist. Forgive me, but I mentioned 4 aspects of Gandhi's philosophy, or the philosophy that Gandhi promoted. I am sticking to the first 2 today because I want you to invite me back physically to discuss the second 2. Because if I am to give justice to these philosophies, trust me, 1 hour is insufficient. And besides, I would like to see you face to face. So let's take the first two, truth and nonviolence, in today's context. We live in a world where we see the massive growth of materialism, and man is judged based upon his rank, based upon his resources, based upon the role that he plays in society. Man is no longer determined by the quality of his being, which is his heart. We live in a world where technology continues to define who we are, and we cannot seem to have a one-on-one relationship. We have a closer relationship with our phone than the relationship with the one who is sitting next to us. We live in a society where it seems like we have accepted corruption and we have accepted brutality as the norm for reasons that is still beyond me. We live in a society where we continue to discriminate based upon religion, economic status, geography, color, as we have seen in a particular country in the Western Hemisphere whose president lost the election not too long ago, but of course we cannot call names. Yes, somebody should be nodding here if you understand where I'm coming from. We live in a society where songs are dominated by a corrupted and distorted version of love that is based upon I love you, kuch kuch hota hai, something is happening inside of me. And it is a feel good. Whereas love is much deeper than that. It is fine to fall in love, but it is better to grow in love. Someone should write that down and quote it. So is there still relevance of truth and nonviolence in the world today? The answer to that is yes. But it is impossible to change the world according to Gandhi unless we start changing ourselves. And if I am to quote not Mahatma Gandhi, I will quote Michael Jackson. He said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I would have sung a little piece for you today, but I was up all night and my voice is not at its best state. But next time I'll do a duet with Lata Mangeshkar on Man in the Mirror. How do we begin that process? Me. It begins by a question that a former head of state in my country asked me over dinner. I asked him a question. I said, I was really young then, like your age group. I said, tell me, former head of state, O wise sage, O Mahaguru, what would you tell a young person in this life to really make it? What would you want to say to a young person? Now, this is what I'm saying to you. He said, you know what is the problem? The biggest problem that we face? People know their job. They know their friends. They know where they live. They know all about their degrees, but they don't even know themselves. Do you even know yourself? And I'm not talking about your name, Shri T. Curry, or your name, Surya Prakash Singh. Not your name, or Miss Pooja. Who are you? Challenge yourself. Do you know who you are? And if you don't know who you are, then what are you changing? Be the change. But you first need to identify what to change. Who am I? I am peace. I am love. I am bliss. I am one with this world. The world is a projection of my mind. Change the mindset. Let it become a mind of quietude, a mind of bliss, a mind of peace. And your entire world as you perceive it, I guarantee you, it will change. Why? Because now you became the unchanging reality. the unchanging virtues of love, joy, and peace. It is not based upon how I feel. I don't get up in the morning and say, do I feel that I love this world? Do I feel happy? Do I feel joy? No, it is a state that I am. By going deeper and deeper within yourself, that you become. The concept of nonviolence. You can't say that you love your dog, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your parents, your siblings, your teacher, Professor Sanjeev Kumar. You can't say, well, I love you, sir, but then you have no love for yourself. It starts with self-love. Because we might be we might say that we are not violent towards others, but yet we are our biggest enemy. We are our greatest enemy. We get up in the morning and we tell ourselves, I'm so stupid. We get up in the day and I look at myself and say, why am I so ugly? Why am I not so beautiful as Aishwarya Rai? Why can't I not have such nice hair like Amitabh Bachchan still at that age? Which I myself don't understand where he get it from. But he's lucky. It all starts with self-love. Love you. Genuinely learn to love you. Look at yourself and say, I'm starting to love me today. Why? Because I don't need to be like everyone else. The fact that I am unique is what makes me so special. I don't have to dress like anyone. If I decide to wear a fluorescent yellow with a fluorescent pink trousers, with a fluorescent green shoes, then do that because you love you. You don't need anyone's permission and approval for self-love. You do it for you. And remember, every thought affects the world. So give the world good thoughts. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi said, if you take a pebble and you drop it in a pond, for those of you who are studying physics will know that the entire field of the pond is affected, even what the naked eyes are unable to see. Every thought that you have in your mind, every intention must be pure, must be right, because it affects the entire field of the universe. The world has changed in many ways where technology is concerned, infrastructure is concerned. But our very nature as human beings, our need for love, compassion, and kindness will never change because they are the eternal treaties. It is not so much about what is Gandhian philosophy. It is more about what is the philosophy of Gandhi. That is eternal. That is everlasting. And that is what the world needs today. My dear friends, I hope you enjoyed my few minutes because I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I know that you may have some questions, and please feel free to ask me any questions that you want. Miss Zua knows me very well. We actually speak on a daily basis, literally 7 days a week. And she will tell you that I am very open to anything that you may ask. So I'm all yours.
Thank you very much, sir. It was truly an insightful and engaging talk. Now, I would like to invite my friend Tanmay to moderate the question and answer round. Over to you, Tanmay.
Yeah, thank you, Zoya. It was indeed a very enlightened talk, the way Sir told us to question ourselves and to love ourselves first before loving anyone else, and the way he talked about the two first philosophies of Gandhi based on truth and non-violence. It was indeed an honor, sir. Thank you very much. I
Thank
hope
you.
all of our students would have loved the talk and they will imbibe these values in everyday basis. That is very important.
Thank you.
So now I invite all the participants to kindly post their questions in the chat box, or if they want to pose a question live, they are most welcome.
You can ask me any question live. I don't mind. I'm welcome. Anything that you wish to ask, so you can put it in the chat box or just ask me outright. It's fine.
Tanmay, I think Ankit has raised his hand. We can take his question.
Yes.
Yes,
Good.
Ankit, you can go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir. First of all, am I audible?
Yes, I
Yes,
am hearing
Ankit,
you
you are
loud and
Okay.
clear.
Thank you very much, sir. First of all, thank you very much for such an insightful, complete session we had with you. It never feel like we are taking a time or we are listening to a lecture. It was like you're sharing an experience which we all were like deeply within beside your experience, and I really enjoyed it till now.
Thank you.
Sir, my question is that in this current scenario where world is definitely moving at another level, which is somehow it is formatting a different format of alliances and everything, which is not explicitly but it is implicitly, and definitely it might be pressure on higher diplomats just like you and all. So in this condition, how you are able to manage this all kind of tension free moment and take them away, and when you come to session you're such an alive, like it feels like you're completely happy and you don't have intention, but deep enough you know that you have a lot inside going in your mind. So how you're able to keep that, and if you can let us know that how you do it, so it would be really great.
I'm very happy to answer your question. And actually, that is the same question that I asked myself at your age. And the answer to it is very simple. There are two realities. There's an intellectual reality and there's an experiential reality. An intellectual reality will give you a very systematic approach as to how you get there. So I will give you the intellectual reality or the intellectual realism of it first, which is keep asking yourself, who am I? By asking yourself, who am I not? If I am not the body, then I am something more. I'm something more subtle. If I am not the mind, then I am something more. I'm something more subtle. If I am not the intellect, then I'm something more. So what then goes beyond that? What goes beyond that is just a pure state of consciousness. If we are able, listen to this carefully, if we are able to transcend the body, to transcend the mind, to transcend the intellect, where it is no longer active and exists in that place of the inactive, which is the unchanging reality. And from that level of the unchanging reality, function in the world of the changing reality, then what happens is that you enter into a state of what we call actionless action, where the core of your being remains in perpetual calm, even while you're in the midst of warfare. Now, the experiential reality is that I cannot explain that to you using a systematic means and words and articulations, because it is really for me to walk you through an experience to get there. And that experiential reality cannot be explained in a verbalized manner. But we will meet, I promise you. Next question.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We have one more question. It is
Sure.
from Samoon Mumtaz, who asks that how can we love ourselves while working on ourselves, making us better day by day?
That is a good question. How can we love ourselves by working on ourselves? First of all, by working on yourself, it shows that you love yourself. Why would you want to evolve if you did not love yourself in the first place? But my question to the questioner is, what is the self that you are loving? What is that self that you love? Is it your hairstyle? Is it that new Gucci bag? Is it that Nike shoes? Is it that Levi jeans? Is it that Ferrari car? What is the self that you love? And hopefully that self that you love is not your physical self. But if you identify yourself to be very special, if you identify yourself to be rare, to be valuable, if you identify yourself to be one that cannot be imitated by anyone else, why? Because you were born unique for a reason. Love that. Love that self. And then that is true self-love. And from there, you don't have to try to be better. Your evolution will be a natural process.
Tanmay, next one we take Jasmine's question. She has been raising her hand.
Yes,
Yes,
of
Ms.
course.
Jasmine.
Very good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So you just mentioned the concept of non-dualism, which basically means that everything is an extension of us, and we must see ourselves in others. But sir, also you mentioned the concept of self-love. Sir, do you think that these two concepts somewhere kind of oppose each other? So in today's world, where we have so many different kinds of people having multifarious thought process, they like different things which can be very different from our mindset. So how can we, cultivate and nourish this feeling of love for others, transcending the self-love? How can we take it to the next step like Gandhi did? It's very
Yes.
difficult for our youngsters, sir.
Ms. Jasmine, that is one of the most fundamental questions that you ask. Because one could simply ask themselves, can I love a murderer? Can I love a rapist? Can I love a pedophile? And I will be very honest with you. My brother was murdered this year, April. If you ask me, do I have love for that murderer? My answer will be that I know karma will deal with his action, but within each individual in this world, there is that divine spark. What makes one different from the other is the difference between knowledge of the self and ignorance. We do not like the ignorance because it is adharma, it is in opposition to virtues. So we may oppose or we may isolate ourselves from a corrupt nature, but it doesn't mean that we don't identify that divine spark in even the dog that might be rushing you when you are walking down the street. It doesn't mean that you run to the dog and hug him up. He will bite you. But you must still see that divine spark in that dog and in every human being, in every bird that flies and every animal that crawls. The divine spark is there. That divine spark is that one unique golden thread that structures the entire universe, that unifies the entire universe. That is what we are, and that is what we love. And that what makes it easy to love all. And that is the non-dualism. The dualism that exists is really an illusion, which is the differences in the way people consciously evolved, in how we treat with ourselves, the level of our consciousness. We operate at different levels of consciousness, and that is the difference. But the core is always divine. and that is the non-difference. That is the non-dualism, or what we know as the monism. Of course, the concept is much deeper, but I'm saving some so that it will give Professor Sanjeev Kumar the opportunity to invite me and we can have full discussion on it.
Sure, sir. I think definitely we look forward to invite you often and again. In fact, let me tell you, sir, when Zoya first spoke to me about a diplomat being invited to Gandhi lecture, I was a little puzzled because generally when we speak to the diplomats, they bring a very different understanding the way they handle international affairs. But hearing you, I believe my perception towards the diplomats and of course the way we engage with them, has certainly changed.
Thank
It's
you
been
very
a
much.
treat to hear you speaking, on such fundamental, aspects of our being. I think that's where I think not only the students, uh, as faculty members, we have definitely been enriched through your, very thought-provoking, uh, uh, there are times, we through our professions, in which we engage, we come across such dilemmas, and we don't know what to do, how to go about it. I think not reflecting on even Gandhi, your lecture has, really brought us to the realities of the world in terms of how better, we can engage with the present predicaments. And it's not difficult, there are certain core values, I think, as human beings, we need to, stand, very firm to it. And it's not difficult. We keep talking about it. Love, non-violence. But I think the way you brought this to our attention, I think all our students have been greatly benefited. And that's where I
Thank
think I richly, uh, appreciate Zoya for this. Uh, I really admire Zoya for bringing Sir to us. And of course, I just wanted to just express my gratitude to you on behalf of Gandhi Studies. But I think the students have a lot of queries and the questions, and they must be having a lot of palpitations also, they will be asking. So please be free to ask, sir. I think you may not just see him as a great scholar on Gandhi, that's where, we become slightly hesitant, myself also working on areas related to Gandhi, and we engage Gandhi and make him so problematic, and the way you have opened, us to Gandhi, I think that is where the importance of this lecture, comes to us. Please, all the students, be free to ask sir whatever queries you have. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
most welcome. And I must say that Ms. Zoya is my very good friend, very close friend. And I must also extend my deepest, my most sincere gratitude to her, because she first asked me my thoughts on Gandhi, and it's basically what I said today. I said to her, I don't really believe so much in a Gandhian philosophy, but I more believe in the philosophies that Gandhi taught. And I remember saying that to her. So I wasn't sure if the university would appreciate my differentiation, because these principles are eternal. It is not, no one has a monopoly on it, but we do have great souls who will make it more known to the world, articulated better than others. And that I appreciate.
Yeah, I think that is where we need to trust people. I think that's very important.
Yes.
So definitely the richness of life and the truth will come out of this. So I think in that sense, it's important. Please go ahead, Joya and Tanmay.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. Uh, Next question we have from Mr. Surya, who says that it is said that truth is the perception of majority and winners, and any effort to explore the truth is termed as orthodox and unscientific. So, does it mean that truth is static, unchanging, or it evolves with time?
My question to give me his name one more time, please.
Mr. Surya Prakash Singh, sir.
Right, Mr. Surya. Your question is indeed a beautiful question, but I will challenge you back by asking you to define truth. Because you said truth is. which is based upon the assumption that you have already defined or had a pre-notion of what is truth. But I will still answer. Your truth and my truth may not necessarily be the same, because you have a social reality that is a very different reality from my social reality. And because the world is a projection of your reality, what you perceive it to be, it will not be the same as mine. I've been married for many, many years. My wife and I live having the same journey, but how she may see this journey may not be the same as mine. She may see a mango on a tree and remember her father climbing that mango tree for her. I will see a mango on a tree and remember trying to climb it and falling off the tree. Her reality and my reality is not the same. So it is very important that we understand what is truth, because your truth is actually static in terms of you and your core nature, but it is changing based upon your experiential reality of truth that continues to evolve. What is that first reality that is unchanging in truth? Is that you are. You cannot deny your existence, because the fact that you say I am not existing establishes your existence to say it. So therefore, that is an unchanging reality as far as you are concerned. But I like pizza, but then reach my age and try to have pizza every day. That is not healthy. So your experiential reality will now change, and that aspect of truth may change. What you have tolerated at age 20 will not be the same at age 40. Last night I was, as I said, in Bollywood, and as soon as it reached 11, I was ready for my bed. But I'm watching young people who were like 19 and 20, and they are now ready to start the night. Their truth and my truth is definitely not the same anymore. So yes, it sounds like a contradiction, a paradox, a dichotomy. But one remains static, which is the eternal you. And one remains very dynamic, which is your experience as you grow and evolve.
Yes, sir. So we might say that the truth is nothing but the projection of one's own mind. If we are
Absolutely.
calm and patient, the world around us will so become. So
Absolutely.
we have another question from Azra Shahab, who tries to connect Gandhi's theory with uh,
Carl Jung?
Carl Jung's theory of collective unconsciousness, in which he believed that human beings are connected to each other and their ancestors through a shared set of experiences. She asks, can we use this collective consciousness to give meaning to the world?
No, the idea behind the collective consciousness must be properly defined and identified as to what that collective consciousness is. Because there are various states of consciousness. You have the waking state of consciousness. Is that a collective consciousness? You have the dream state of consciousness. Is that a collective consciousness? You have the deep sleep state of consciousness. Is that a collective consciousness? You have the transcendental state of consciousness that exists beyond the waking, the dreaming, and the deep sleep, but still exists in the waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state of consciousness. Now, that fourth state of consciousness, which I call the transcendental state of consciousness, is the one unifying force that exists. I will call it the unifying source of consciousness. If that is a collective consciousness that Carl Jung is making reference to, then yes, that is the unifying force for all of us. But as I said, we have to be careful when we are throwing these terminologies around, that we must be able to first clarify what that term means. What is the concept behind it? And then we are able to do a proper diagnosis on what it means for us. Please, any questions?
Tanmay, I think Suraj has raised his hand. So we
Yes,
can.
I saw Suraj raising his hand.
Yes.
All right, so very good afternoon, I guess.
Yes,
This
good
was
afternoon.
this was really a very enlightening session, and it was an opportunity, not less than an opportunity, to being able to hear you, sir. Actually, the thing is, even just yesterday, I started writing something, and I began with, I always find myself a kind of puzzled and lost in my thoughts when I think about what is truth. And after literally having writing 9 to 10 pages, I end up with another question, and that was, I would reiterate my question, that can even a single definition of truth exist? So I'm like, then I came upon the conclusion that we all are consciousness, and we all have our different interpretations of everything that is taking place around the world. Our interpretation might be based upon the experiences that we have, anything that can be our perception. Perception is again based upon the experiences that we had in our life. So actually, after listening you, I feel myself that I know everything is just paraphrased once again, and I came upon my conclusion. So very thank you very much, sir, for that. And second thing I wanna say, that you said, is there anything which is known as, categorically known as Gandhian philosophy? Or is there something, the eternal truth, which the eternal philosophy that Gandhi propagates, right? So coming to this, actually I have been listening the favorite bhajan or the favorite song, hymn of Mahatma Gandhi, Vaishnav Janto Tene Kahiye, Peed Parai Janiye, पर उपकार करे तो ये मान अभिमान ना आने रे. I have been listening to that song since the day I got to know that that is the favorite song of Gandhiji, and that has been, every time I listen to that hymn, that leaves a very profound effect on me, and I don't know, I just find myself again into another transcendental world, which I do not belong to this world, and I find myself into another world. Now coming to my question, sir, I have felt, I always find myself you know completely puzzled when I see how should I react. How should I react to situation? I believe in love. I believe in peace. I believe in stability. But when things come, for example, someone has committed a very heinous crime, such as of a rape, such as murdering someone, exactly. I feel myself, how can I forgive that person? Or even if I have the feeling to forgive that person, how should I treat that person? Because simply letting that thing go and not forgiving that person just for the sake of my mental stability, and for reinforcing the beliefs that I believe in, should we let that person go, or should we be should first ensure that the perpetrator meets the punitive arrangement, and then we should forgive him as a person and should not have any negative feeling for that person? Is that the right way, or anything else?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing your 10-page concept on truth. I would love to read it if ever I get the chance. And in terms of how we deal, remember, when we look at virtues, don't limit virtues to be love and a charismatic smile on the face. There's also justice. And justice is also a virtue. Even if we look at Islam, Christianity, or Sanatan Dharma, we know that for whatsoever a man sows, the same shall he also reap. If a person commit a crime, then for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. They pay the penalty for the crime. It doesn't mean that we do it out of hatred or that we do it out of bitterness. but we do it out of the concept of justice for a heinous crime that was committed. While we do so, who do we serve justice to? We serve justice to the ignorance that prevailed in that individual that committed it, with the hope that the real core of that person will somehow, somewhere become enlightened one day to realize what they have done, but it doesn't give them the right to escape the penalty that they need to pay. And that is not wrong, but that is actually being just.
Yes, sir. It answered my question also. I would like to thank Surya for that. I was also going to ask whether the last point which sir had mentioned, that every thought which we create has a ripple in the world, has an effect on the world, and how to, how to control our feelings and to how to react to situations, which Suraj had raised the point. I got the answer. Thank you very much, sir. We have one more question from Priyanshu Singh.
Sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Tanme, but before that, since you raised the point, I would like to challenge Gandhi a bit, just a little, right?
of course,
So
sir.
he said that it is through the power of love that the path of love that even against an enemy, that we can change that enemy from committing wrong. So he believed that one should not engage in self-defense. And he went on to explain that it is based on the Hindu scriptures. And this is a thought, just a thought. And I wondered if he read the Ramayana, because Ram engaged in battle against Ravan, and it was a righteous battle. I was wondering which scripture he was making reference to, because the entire Mahabharata, the Pandavas versus the Kauravas, was a righteous war. And in fact, the philosophical part of the Mahabharata, which is Gita, delivered before the war started. It was to prepare Arjuna for the war. So if wrong is done, in my humble opinion, we have a responsibility to stand for righteousness once the intention of the action is divine and righteous.
May I come, His Excellency,
Yes, please,
here to your question on Gandhi, that Gandhi was against right to self-defense. When you look at his philosophy of non-violence, and that's where
Yes.
you took upon the Indian Vedic, text to highlight this. I think that is where we need to understand that when you think of Gandhian philosophy, when it comes to speaking about non-violence, he's not saying so.
Yes.
And that's where I think probably we misinterpret Gandhi.
Yes.
Because I remember Gandhi while he was in South Africa, and there were few people after he had, started this, passive resistance against the regime, black apartheid regime. And few people came and assaulted him. And there this son comes to Gandhi, afterwards and said that, what should I have done, father? These people were, creating havoc on you. Then he said, you could have retaliated against them. At that point of time, it was your dharma, the basic duty to protect me, not to just give up yourself to the aggressor. In the same light, if a person is coming to, rape a person, you won't say that, okay, fine, the rapist will succumb to the rapist. Gandhi's answer will be, we have to, but then this kind of non-violence that Gandhi refers to is that there are two ways of locating it. One, inward non-violence, and there is outward. So outward, of course, the moment I rub my hand, there is a violence. You cannot avoid that, but there are many things that you can avoid.
Yes.
So in that framework, I think Gandhi becomes important to us. You have to understand the context
Yes.
in which Gandhi tries to, revisit the concept of non-violence. So he's very courageous. It is
Yes.
not like mutual avoidance, of violence, but he problematizes violence. He brings different, context of violence where violence is to be, repudiated, challenged, and that
Absolutely.
challenge is against all, multifaceted. It's the structural violence,
Yes.
it's the economic capitalism, it's human nature also, of course. So in
Mhm.
that sense, I think we need to also understand Gandhi.
Yes.
So he was
That is
not
why
all
it was a provocative question.
exactly.
Yes, to the
Thank you.
students, that they will must be the ones to engage that quest. As
Definitely.
I said, not all questions I will answer, but to
Definitely.
provoke them into a quest to find those answers themselves.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, Tanvir, proceed.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
please
So
ask.
we have, I think, a last question here, with which is posed by Priyanshu Singh. She says that, do you see Gandhi's idea of Swaraj? How do you think that it is more of an idea of self-regulated or self-conscious way of anarchism? That is, she is equating Gandhi's idea of Swaraj with that of self-regulated anarchism. What are your views on that, sir?
As I said, Hindi is not my strong point. Could you give me the English version?
Self-rule, sir.
Self-rule.
Swaraj refers to self-rule, not
Yes.
only in the political sense of the term, but also rule over oneself,
Yes.
over one's own senses.
Yes. Absolutely. Because again, when we look at self-rule, let's take a look at it first from the individual perspective before a societal or communal perspective. What do we rule? And many a times we try to rule behavior. The self is divided into multiple aspects. One aspect of the self is our senses. So the mind must rule the senses rather than the senses rule the mind. But what rules the mind? The intellect. So the intellect must now rule the mind, which the mind then rules the senses. What then rules the intellect? Our core ideology and identity of our higher consciousness. What is that higher consciousness? That higher consciousness is perpetual peace, joy, happiness, bliss, and the virtues that are permanent. So if those virtues that are permanent control the intellect can then rule the mind, and the mind can then rule the senses, and in so doing, we rule ourselves. That is self-rule. Now imagine everyone in a community and in a society engaging in that kind of concept, what a country would look like, what a world would look like. Yes, yeah, it's a rhetorical question, so you don't need to
Yeah, yeah,
answer.
of
Yes.
course.
So
So
next,
yes, of course. I think we have come to the end of the question and answer session. Uh, Thank you very much, sir, for your enlightening answers. And it has been made very, very interactive, and we never thought as if we are speaking to a diplomat. Thank you very much for your friendly way of talk. And
yes,
a small announcement for all the participants. We have posted a feedback form in the chat box, and we request you all to kindly fill it so that we will be able to organize such programs in the future in the way you want it, and it will be a kind of inspiration for us. So thank you very much. Thank you, sir. And
yes,
I hand it over to Zoya now.
Thank you very much, Tanmay. Thank you very much, sir, for answering all the questions so patiently. Gandhi Study Circle, Zakir Hussain Delhi College, in collaboration with Miranda House, conducted a speech competition titled Speaking with Gandhi. The competition was conducted in 2 rounds, and the final round of the competition was organized on 3rd October. Now, I would like to hand over to Bilal to announce the results of the speech competition. Over to you, Bilal.
Uh, Hello. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, Bilal, you're audible.
Yeah, great. So I'll be starting off by just saying a few words about one of the judges who adjudicated the speech competition yesterday, Diksha ma'am. So I'll be reading this message on behalf of her. Uh, Hello everyone. Apologies that I couldn't be there in person for the result announcement, but needless to say, I love being a part of the event. Participating in a live event online can be a little nerve-wracking, but all the participants, right from the prelims to the finals, did very well. They spoke passionately on the topics of their choice or what was allotted to them. I can't say a lot about the content since my knowledge of it is limited. However, I think I can speak a bit on the structure and delivery of the speeches. We often forget that speech is primarily an oral form and tend to conflate it with an essay, which is a written one. While the participants did the thorough research, one idea they can work on is making it more persuasive. If you feel lost with all the information you've gathered through your research, it helps to take a couple of key points and build your argument through them. It makes the speech sharper. So these are just some of the points that occurred to me. I hope they are helpful. So yeah, with that being said, yeah, I'll move on with the prize winners of yesterday's competition. So I'll be moving on from third winner to the second and to the first. So the third, just give me a second, please. Yeah. So the person who won the third prize is Jasmine Kaur Chahal. Yeah, Jasmine, if you're here, congratulations. The person who got the second prize is Aminesh Manoj. Um, yeah, and the first and winner of the GSC speech competition, Zakir Hussain Daily College, is Garima Singh. So congratulations to all the award winners. Kudos to all those who participated. With that, I'll hand it over back to you, sir. Thank you.
Um, Bilal, can we also invite Tripta ma'am to say a few words about the
Yeah,
competition?
sure. Sincere apologies. Yeah, Tripta ma'am, if you could speak a few words to the prize winners.
Thank you, Bilal. Thank you, Zoya. But that's completely all right. I mean, Diksha has actually conveyed what we needed to convey to the participants, and congratulations to the winner. In addition to what Diksha said, I just wanted to say that and she rightly pointed out that there is a difference between a speech competition and essay. So we need to we need to think about it when we participate in such competition, and also that your speech should reflect the sources. This is the one thing. No, we were talking about it, and we just thought that we should let our participant know that when you prepare a speech, you should actually let the sources reflect that this is what you have been reading, not in the sense of bibliography, but only as a reflection. So this is what I really wanted to suggest to all the participants. But they did a wonderful job. I mean, and I don't think they were given enough time, but even in that short duration they could actually come up with such wonderful speeches, and this was really remarkable, and I really thoroughly enjoyed you know judging that competition. So thank you for giving me that opportunity also. Thank you, Bilal. So yeah, that's all from me.
Ma'am, we can also start with the vote of thanks now.
Okay. So all right. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity, Zoya. And it is indeed a privilege to offer thanks on this occasion. And with this session, we conclude our Gandhi Jayanti celebration for this year. However, I also think that celebrating Gandhi and engaging with Gandhi's ideas is a lifelong quest. And activities here that we organize at Gandhi Study Circle is just scratching the surface with discussions such as we just had today, which was a great discussion. I mean, calling for a lot of introspection and you know thinking philosophically about all the Gandhian ideas. So yeah, so I really specifically I would like to thank to our esteemed guest for today, His Excellency Dr. Roger Gopal. And I know it was a really wonderful discussion, and I could see that our students were really comfortable with him. So thank you very much, sir, for taking out your precious time from your busy schedule. It really means a lot. To us, and I could hear that you are more than willing to come again, which would be a pleasure for all of us, I guess. So we'll be looking forward to that meeting as well. um, I would also like to thank our principal, Dr. K.K. Arora, for supporting this society in all its endeavor. The encouragement and support he extends, to this society, Gandhi Study Circle, actually equips us to perform better in our task of engaging with Gandhi, which of course is a great thing for all of us. The core team of students of Gandhi Study Circle deserves a special thanks and applause, as they are the main motor of this society, and without them it is really impossible to envisage, plan and execute all these wonderful programs. So a big thanks to the core team of the Gandhi Study Circle, that includes, all of us, all the students are here, including Zoya, Bilal, Aditya, Mr. Jeet, Tanmay. There are many names, so I'm not going to take everybody's name, but the core team knows who I'm referring to. So a big thank you to the core team. Also, a warm thanks, I should extend the warm thanks to the convener of the Gandhi Study Circle, Dr. Sanjeev Kumar, because he is actually the soul of this society, and constantly guiding and encouraging all of us to reach new heights, to think about different things, to think creatively. And it's really great to be here with, with such a mentor. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Shabana Azmi and Dr. Aftab Alam for the constant guidance and support they provide to our students. So, a big thanks to them for being the guide and being the being the support system to our students. And of course, last but not the least, a big thanks to the audience, because they are the reason, because of which we actually uh, work together like this, and we could come up with such good programs. And I really hope that this kind of participation that we had this time in Gandhi Jayanti celebration and in all other activities that we organize, I mean, that really encourages and motivates us to have more such activities, and we will be organizing more such activities in the future, assuming the same support from the participants. So a big thanks to everybody, and for with these words, I would really like to hold myself here. But yeah, a really big thank to everybody. Thank you very much.
Uh, Thank you, ma'am. Before leaving the session, can we have a group picture? Participants are requested to switch on their cameras. Thank you so much, everyone. Feedback form is already posted. You all can fill the form. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zoya. Thank you all of you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Zoya, Tripta, Shavana, we'll just take a while, I'll just
Hi,
stop the
Aditya. How
recording.
are you?
Just
Sorry, sir. I'm just seeing him after a long time.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm good.